Hello again. One of the great pleasures of my recent stay in Jerusalem was going to the Temple Mount and seeing Muslim holy places such as the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock. Although, of course, being kuffar, I'm now unable to enter them, although I have done so in the past. I'm anything but an enemy of Islam. I do, however, have a problem with the behaviour of many Muslims in Europe and North America, which every day seems to grow more demanding and then aggressive if the demands are not met. We see in Britain the imposition of halal food upon hospitals and schools, and the way in which the police are very keen to pursue anybody who upsets a Muslim. A special word has even been devised for those who irritate and annoy Muslims. It is called Islamophobia, and people are arrested and taken to court for doing things which upset nobody but Muslims, which is outrageous. The reason that everybody bends over backward to avoid Muslims getting worked up and angry is, of course, very plain, although nobody likes to mention it out loud. It is that the threat of violence lies behind every complaint made by a Muslim about supposedly unfair treatment or religious prejudice. At the back of everybody's mind when Muslims say that they dislike this or that is the awareness that if we're not careful, then the next thing you know will be, at best, an angry crowd of fierce young men chanting Allahu Akbar, and at worst, somebody having his head chopped off or bombs being detonated. It is this which has elevated Islam to a special status in the Western world, rather than any individual merits which the religion itself might have. It is why when there is friction between Hindus and Muslims in Britain, the police invariably take the side of the Muslims, because they know that if they do not do so, there will be trouble. After all, the Hindus are not going to go on stabbing sprees or picket local schools, are they? You can safely ignore the wishes of the Hindu community, or the Sikhs, come to that matter, or the Jains. A wonderful example of this awful cowardice towards and frantic desire to appease Muslims and accord them a respect which is not shown for other faiths such as Jainism or Buddhism was shown recently in Canada. A young man decided that he wished to pray in the railway station in the Canadian capital of Ottawa. Of course, ordinary people, Christians, Jews, Hindus, Sikhs, Jains, Buddhists, and members of every other religion in the world, are able simply to sit or stand and speak silently to the Lord, without making a big production of it or indeed drawing any attention whatever to themselves. For example, when I was on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, there were strict rules made by arrangement with the Muslim religious authorities who administer the site that nobody at all other than Muslims may pray there. And there are signs before you enter the Temple Mount to this effect, that you mustn't pray unless you're Muslim. Well, that's fine. I was able to pray there anyway because I simply chose a quiet corner and said a silent prayer. No problem at all, and many Christians and Jews do that very thing so that they can both pray and also avoid starting trouble. It's not difficult, is it? In the description to this video, I give a link to a BBC item about the Muslim who decided to pray at Ottawa's railway station. He unrolled a prayer mat and began prostrating himself on the floor of the station, whereupon a member of staff asked him to do so outside, which I venture to suggest is not an unreasonable request. The exchange was filmed by a third party, which makes me suspect that the whole thing was staged as a provocation. The Muslim said, "What? Out in the cold?" Now, this really is weird. Is it not possible to speak to the creator of the universe if the temperature falls below a certain level? I've certainly given thanks to the Lord on a snowy day, and I'm sure that my prayer was heard just as easily when the temperature was below freezing point. Objecting to his treatment, the man, who looks and sounds like an African American, says that could have been anybody, Jewish, Christian, Hindu. No, it couldn't, you idiot, because Jews, Christians and Hindus who wish to speak to the Lord inside a railway station do not feel they have to lay on the floor to do so. They are able to offer up silent prayers in their hearts. This awkward customer may be seen in the thumbnail to this video. Needless to say, the Canadian authorities have now abased themselves and made copious apologies for their Islamophobia, and promised that in future any Muslims who feel like unrolling prayer mats and laying on the floor in the railway station will be welcome to do so. In this way, the Western way of life is subverted and made to accommodate the wishes of a small minority group. The apology was only made because this was a Muslim, and those running the station didn't want to see a crowd of angry Muslims surrounding the station and perhaps growing violent in defence of their religion. If Muslims simply conducted themselves with the same dignity and desire to follow the rules of society as Buddhists, Jews, Sikhs and Jains do, then there wouldn't be any Islamophobia. It is this insistence on behaving in such an obtrusive manner which sparks confrontations like this in the first place, not hatred of Islam, about which most people do not care in the least, and for which I at least have enormous respect.